What's up, YouTube? The moment of truth is here. What did I actually take home from $30 million of sales in 2025? In this video, I'm going to be diving into my profit and loss statement, showing you the exact costs associated with running a large Amazon business and how much I netted at the end of the day. My name is Dan, aka 1000 ASINs. I've been selling on Amazon for 8 years now, generating over $80 million of sales and counting, and I run a fairly large wholesale brand direct business. And at this point, I've helped over 300 students grow and scale their Amazon wholesale business. There's still plenty of opportunity going into 2026 for you to do the same. So stay tuned and you'll see the final results on $30 million of sales. This is my 2025 profit and loss statement, and we're going to go through line by line and see how I did and talk about some of the various expenses and my plan to increase my profit for the future. So let's get into it. So in 2025, I did 28.4 million of sales, and that's across all channels. That's Amazon, eBay, Walmart, Shopify. Amazon alone, I think, was 26 million. So we did, between 2 and 3 million on the other channels. And then that represents 105% of revenue. And then the rest of these things are deducted to bring it down to 100% for net income. So we have discounts, refunds, rebates, chargebacks, and then shipping income is added back in. That's kind of how Amazon structures it. So as you can see, my refund percentage was 5%, which I think that's actually up from last year, about a percentage point. So it might be that I'm just selling in categories with slightly higher return rates, but I still think that's an acceptable return rate. So after refunds, I'm looking at 27 million, and then cost of goods sold on that 13.99 million. So cost of goods sold represents 51.78% of revenue, which completely tracks because typically wholesale pricing is going to be about half of the retail. So that makes perfect sense. And then as you get into certain categories like electronics or, high ticket items, often the wholesale price will not be 50% off retail. It might be 30 or 40% off retail because the gross profit is still pretty large at that point, and it's higher ticket, and certain industries just manufacturing costs are higher. So if that goes up to 55, 60%, if I'm selling higher ticket items, I don't mind that. And then on the flip side, often there are really low priced items where, it might be 65% off retail. So as long as it averages out to something reasonable, it kind of makes sense. This second cost of goods sold line, that's actually for drop shipping. So we've gotten into some drop shipping from reputable suppliers, of course, following all of the terms and conditions on Amazon to make sure we don't get in trouble for that. We're not doing anything like, drop shipping items from Walmart or Target or anything like that, or overseas. It's really reputable drop ship suppliers. So let's see, inventory adjustment. That's just various adjustments from our local warehouse or from Amazon. Happy to say it was only a 0.56% adjustment. So that could be like products we get rid of because they're like short dated or expired. So we take losses there, or, discrepancies between our quantities and Amazon's quantities, stuff like that. So my bookkeeper does that for the most part. So I don't really get in the weeds there, but acceptable level here. But ideally, this would be, zero. We'd have perfect inventory management and, never have to adjust anything. Inbound shipping, 520K. So that constitutes almost 2% of our revenue there. So of course, that's always a line item where we'd like to get down as much as possible, either by negotiating better shipping rates or, shipping more efficiently, perhaps. I think we have good rates, not great rates. I'm sure there's a little bit more to negotiate there. And as we continue increasing our shipping volume, we'll have more negotiating power there. So yeah, that's one area to look for a little bit of improvement. Supplies, 35K. Again, that's probably something I can negotiate down a little bit, but I'm pretty happy with the overall cost. Let's see. Okay, now on to the biggest line item. So FBA fees, so that's the FBA pick, pack, ship fee, which was about 18% of revenue. And then this is the customer referral fee, landing at 12%. So depending on the Amazon category you're in, referral fees can be as low as 6% for stuff like electronics, and they can be as high as like 18+% for like certain home and kitchen clothing items. On average, it's about 15%. But then certain categories will be 8%, 12%. It really varies. We sell a lot of stuff sub $10, and in a lot of those categories, they only take an 8% referral fee. And we also sell some electronics with a 6% referral fee. So that's why our overall referral fees are sitting at 12%. Most of our stuff is at 15, but then we have some stuff that's 8% and 6%. So that averages it down to more like 12%. Let's see. This line, I believe, is reimbursements. So we've received $600,000 of reimbursements from Amazon lost inbound, warehouse damage, warehouse loss, stuff like that, constituting 2.22% of revenue added back in. So had we been not on top of reimbursements at all, that's how much Amazon will just take. Reimbursements are really, really important. So it's important to stay on top of every single category, as you can see, because 2% added to your bottom line is, very, very, very substantial. But yeah, for those of you new to Amazon, Amazon will take roughly 28-30% off the top of every sale. And then, your cost of goods sold is going to take the other, 50% or so. So you're looking at 20% margin off the top just on Amazon. If you have cost of goods sold of 50%, then Amazon takes 30%, that's going to leave you around 20%. These are various, other channel fees like payment processor fees, eBay, Walmart, Shopify, as you can see. So that's like their equivalent of Amazon fees. And if you look at all that stuff, that is going to add up to 87.81% of revenue, leaving a gross profit of 12.82%. This is a little lower than I would have liked, but most of that stuff is not controllable. Although I will say cost of goods sold, you can always try to negotiate that lower. Cost of goods sold is a reflection of your purchasing habits, so how good prices you're getting overall. So cost of goods sold probably actually is the biggest controllable here. You should always look to get the best possible pricing that you can, negotiate with your suppliers as much as you can. The next biggest controllable is probably the shipping, which isn't really all that controllable. I can maybe get this down 10-15%, but not that much. So I think what this shows me is that I probably need to, on average, buy more profitable products. There are a few brands this year that drag down my margin, unfortunately, and that's probably always going to be the case for larger sellers. Not every single product line you sell is going to work out beautifully at an ultra high margin. Sometimes competition comes on listings and drags the price down to break even. You just have no choice but to break even on the product. That happened a couple of times with us. And so I think while we have a lot of products with 20-25% plus, nice margin, some brands we had to let go of really dragged that down to be 13% overall. So going into 2026, just exercising more prudence with what brands we go with, and hopefully get that gross profit margin up. But yeah, so that 13%, our gross profit was $3.46 million, which is pretty substantial. That's over that, or just under $300,000 of profit per month. And then unfortunately, that's just, on Amazon without factoring in any of our own overhead expenses. So now let's get into that. So we spent $233K on Amazon ads. This number is a little bit misleading because we actually get ad co-ops from some brands that contribute half of the budget. So I'd say about 100,000 of that we actually got back in invoice credits and whatnot. So, but yeah, we spent nearly a percentage point of revenue on Amazon PPC ads, some product giveaways, and then other various marketing expenses. Let's see, general administrative. 131K on software. That's, part of that was redoing a website. We spent like 20K doing that and a couple other like one-off projects. So our regular software subscriptions are probably like $6,000-$7,000 a month. Every year I'll evaluate those, make sure we're actually getting our money's worth out of them. Let's see. Insurance, meals, I do a lot of travel with my team to various trade shows, and, I don't really consider this too much of an expense because it's kind of fun at the same time. So, but it's something I probably could shave off a little bit. Office expense, like 49K. So that's various equipment for the office and probably for the warehouse too, like computers, printers, et cetera, et cetera. Travel, not bad, all things considered. Legal and professional, I'm not sure why this was so high. I'd have to go back and think about it, but bookkeeping's probably about a third of that. And then there's some legal costs for a brand that I purchased and some other various one-off fees. So I think that was higher than usual this year. Hopefully next year will be a lot lower. Rent, utilities, those are kind of fixed more or less. Equipment rent. So yeah, we rented some like a forklift for a time, and we have this piece of machinery that it's this strange like lease to own scenario where we pay like $700 a month for a few years and then we buy it for $1. So that's why it's showing equipment lease, but it's really us like paying off the machine. Taxes, licenses, telephone, recruiting, office equipment. So, all kind of standard stuff that added a 2.27% off of the profit margin. I'm sure there's a little bit of fat to trim there, but not too bad. And now on to probably my biggest overhead expense, which is payroll. As you can see, payroll really increased a lot this year, up to 1.2 million. Part of that is because I doubled my own salary from 100K to 200K. My accountant said that I'm paying myself a little bit low due to the revenue. And since I'm an S Corp, that could cause some red flags if I don't pay myself a fair market rate. So I did that. And then I also hired some offshore people, not from the Philippines, from another country that had a lot of Amazon experience prior. So they cost a little bit more. And workers' comp insurance, payroll taxes, unavoidable. So yeah, this is really, this is my big overhead expense for sure. And let's see. I'm trying to see what else was deducted off of this 13% to bring it down. So we have 12.82 minus 1.2 for advertising, minus 2.27 for general administrative. So that's like rent and supplies and stuff. And then we have minus 4.39 for payroll, other expenses. So this is going to be loan interest, which that's another thing we're going to improve this year. I should be closing on an SBA loan pretty soon. So better interest rate, longer term. But yeah, paid 125K in loan interest. So another 0.5% off for that. So then you subtract all these, overhead things, they add up to 8.35% of revenue, giving me a net operating income of 4.47% or 1.2 million. But here's where the good news starts. There are various add backs to make the profitability a lot more than the 4.5% margin. So let's get into other income and cashback rewards. So yeah, credit card cashback really adds up. I try to do as much inventory spend as I can on a 2.5% cashback credit card, which really adds up. I think some of that cashback is actually in other income and not under cashback rewards. So I think I did get about 150 to 200K of cashback this year, which adds straight back into profit, which is great. And then I also have some affiliate marketing stuff going on and other various sources of income, like occasionally, wholesale some products for a profit, stuff like that. So I do have about 300K of income added back, or 1.11% of my margin added back. So really that 4.47% becomes like 5.5%. We have other expenses, just various small things. Depreciation isn't really an expense. It's really just like a paper expense. So I consider that an add back. And then another major add back, which I consider an add back, is my own salary. So there's $200,000 of payroll costs. That's really just me paying myself, me withdrawing money out of my own business. So I consider that an add back as well. So at the end of the day, net income 1.47 million plus 200,000. So I'm going to say 1.67 million. And then the last add back, give me a second here. Oh yeah, now I remember what I was going to say. Two suppliers that we buy from, they have manufacturer rebates. So a small percentage of what we spend per year is actually credited back to us in the form of either a check or an invoice credit. So those manufacturer rebates actually added up to another $160,000. So those are coming this month in January and next month. So that I consider, even though the income wasn't earned in 2025, it kind of does factor into the overall profitability. So I'm going to add another 160,000. So 1.67 million plus 160,000. What is the grand total? One moment, doing the math. 1.83 million. Now I'm going to divide that 1.83 by 28,430,000, or actually, I'm sorry, the 27 million is the number. And that leaves me with a net margin of 6.77%. So almost 7% net margin, which was an improvement over my 5.1% net margin in 2024. So I am happy with the revenue improvement, but also the net margin improvement. And the last part of this video, I'm just going to talk about my plan to increase the margin further. So the number one thing I can do to increase my margin is to increase my sales and gross profit without increasing my overhead, which I'm happy to say I'm in a position to do. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I kind of built out a team that is really more than enough for what we're doing now. So, I think I can grow 30 to 40% and really not need to hire any staff except maybe a couple more warehouse employees, but that's not going to affect the payroll really much at all. And then rent and software and loan interest and all these overhead costs, they will become a smaller percentage of revenue and profit as I grow and maintain the same overhead. So I think naturally as I grow, my overhead will not increase. So therefore my margin will increase automatically. And then I'm also going to try and trim the fat in a few small areas. Loan interest is going to be one of them, which is already in the works. And then maybe shipping, supplies. I might actually pull back on some of the advertising if I'm not seeing the result from it. And yeah, that's really it. And then, I mean, the biggest next one is just making better buys. I mean, I think I'm, cutting overhead is one thing and should always be, a goal, but also improving gross margin is probably the other biggest thing I can do. Just making better buys, working better deals with better margin. And, with those two things combined, I would like to increase my margin from 6.7% up to maybe 8%. I think that is fairly doable. So those are my goals. And then in terms of increasing my revenue, my goal is to hit 35 million on Amazon and 40 million across everything. So I have my work cut out for me, 35% growth. But with this new SBA loan, I should be able to hit it. So yeah, that's the recap. And that's kind of a realistic view of everything that goes into a medium-sized Amazon wholesale business. I'm sure there are some people out there doing better margin than me. And I'm sure there are a whole lot of people out there doing worse margin than me. I've heard a lot of stories in my travels from big sellers that are, they say they know this other big seller and they're breaking even, or they're running at 2% or 3% net margin and like really cutting it close there. So I am actually fairly happy with my nearly 7% net margin, but I still think I can improve that significantly. So thanks for watching. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of some of the overhead numbers and just, everything on a financial statement for an Amazon business. And yeah, continue to update these videos quarterly. So there will be a Q1 2026 video, Q2, Q3, Q4, etc. And I want to document my process as transparently as possible and be kind of the anti-guru who's just flashing revenue numbers and rented sports cars and all that stuff without really having a legitimate Amazon business. So thanks for watching. If this P&L video inspired you to try and go out and do the same and grow your business to netting well over $1 million in a year, I have good news for you. I have built my exact system, documented everything, put it all into one program in ongoing community that shows you all of the strategies, tips, tricks. I withhold nothing. It's all there for you. If you're interested in doing what countless students have done, for instance, Peter, who started as a CPA, has built actually quite a lucrative Amazon business on top of working full-time. Or Cameron, who's gone from having 0 Amazon accounts to actually 2 brand direct exclusives that are doing $45,000 a month. Countless other students as well. If you want to be the next success story, it's all laid out for you. I have a very comprehensive program on how to do this and how to manage an Amazon business like a professional and grow it over time to hopefully a level that I've grown it to. It's still very possible in 2026. It's still bursting with opportunity. If that sounds interesting to you, book a call below using the link below the video, and someone from my team can outline exactly what we do, how and why we do it. I wish you guys the best of luck in your businesses in 2026 and look forward to hearing from you.